Welcome to Lawyers in the House with Motley. Wish you had a lawyer in the family? Now you do. Here's your host, Veronica Waters.
Hello and welcome to the house. It's Lawyers in the House with Motley on WSB and your girl, Veronica Waters, sitting in front of the mic for you, bringing you another fabulous episode with Motley Injury Attorneys. One of my all-time favorites is in the house with me today, and I know you guys get tired of hearing me say that, but when I tell you I have made so many friends on this show, it is really the truth every single time. All right, so I'm going to start off with a little behind-the-scenes note about Veronica before we get into it, okay? I like superheroes. Don't laugh. I love superheroes. Okay, so my job as a journalist can be very depressing. It can be very draining. You sometimes see the worst in people. You see bad outcomes. And so I love watching movies in which the good guy is going to win when there is justice for all.
That's fair.
I mean, it's just, it's so uplifting, and it's the kind of stuff that allows me to lose myself for a little while and feel good when I come away, when I come away from it. Now, that being said, I am a big fan of Wonder Woman. Love Wonder Woman. Another little fact about Veronica, that film was so powerful to me, I actually wept.
Aww.
I cried in the theater. I was in tears. It was so powerful. We can get into that, on the social, okay? We don't have to talk about that right now. But imagine my joy when Wonder Woman is not just her fierce, fabulous, fiery, amazing, jaw-dropping self by herself, but when she's on a team.
Yeah.
So she's with Superman, and she's with Batman, and she's with Cyborg, and she's with Aquaman, and she's with the Flash. And I'm like, oh my God, Justice League, I am here for it. Yes, I'm all in. So imagine now that Justice League fighting for you is actually a team of attorneys. Exceptional lawyers is what we're talking about today. Not just the power of one, but the power of all. And let's start off with the one who's in the house with us today, Jennifer Fleming. Thank you so much for being back with me, Jen.
Thanks for having me. And wow, what an introduction. I hope I can live up to that hype. Gosh.
Oh, I always say not all superheroes wear capes, and you've had some amazing outcomes for your clients.
Yes, we have.
What was that honor that you had before? Top 10 best attorneys by the American Institute of Legal Counsel 3 years in a row?
Yep. I had Rising Star in 2013, and now we're 11 years later, so I'm no longer rising, I suppose.
Now you're just a star.
Yes, I've gotten a lot of accolades, and it's wonderful, but it's never as good as actually helping the client. I mean, it's really nice to be recognized, but helping the client is always the best feeling in the world.
I know. I remember that you feel something like this really personal, blossoming, or these personal fireworks when you're sitting down face to face with them. And
yeah, getting to hear someone's story face to face, and when they're talking to you about something that's really impacted their life or their family's lives in a significant way. And if you're able to settle a case for them or get a good jury verdict for them, and maybe them giving you a hug or just saying, wow, you really helped my family. That's the best feeling in the world, when you get to sit down with them and see that you've made an impact and hopefully help them in some way. It's the best feeling.
You are licensed in several states.
I am,
actually.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you see how the law changes from state to state, how things can be so different, how they can be so similar.
Yes.
Is that super challenging?
It can be, actually. So we're nationwide, as you guys know. And I'm licensed in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Georgia. And just New Jersey and Georgia, there are so many differences in the law that you may not know or wouldn't know. Even with insurance limits is something. In Florida, the minimum limits are $10,000. In Georgia, $25,000. In New Jersey, they used to be $15,000. I don't know if they still are right now, but it's just even little things like that can differ. But then there are bigger ways laws change.
Yeah. So we're talking today about the superhero attorney, Jennifer Fleming at Motley Injury Attorneys. Jen, thank you so much for being in the house. I am going to say that, please forgive me if you think I'm being a little excessive talking about superheroes. But I've talked to some of the clients that Motley has had, and they have made it clear that you guys are heroes in their eyes because they don't know how they would have gotten from one point to another without you in their corners. So you may not be wearing a cape, but you're definitely playing a heroic role. But at Montlick, there is a team of folks just like you, Jen.
Yes. We have a team of lawyers. We have the support staff. We have the resources. We have everything we need to try to get those exceptional results for our clients. And not every place has that. And that's something to look at when you're looking at what firm you're choosing. Montlick has enough support staff, enough resources so that we can do what needs to be done on every case to make it as successful as possible.
So what we're going to do on this show today, folks, is sort of delve into a lot of the different cases that a lot of the different attorneys at Montlick have handled. Now, I know that Montlick works really hard to get people the maximum recovery that they can have for
Yes.
each and every case. Some things probably come to you and they look pretty straightforward.
Right.
Yes?
Yeah, some cases seem like it's clear that they would be high value. For instance, a wrongful death. What is the cost of a human life? You can't really put a number on that, especially when it's your family member. And we're there to maximize the amount of recovery you can get. I had a case, a very, very tragic case. A father was driving down the highway. A tractor trailer negligently changed lanes and positioned him up against a wall. It caught fire and he passed away. He was here fighting for the migration status of his children who are not in the country. And it was very sad, very tragic. When I got the 911 tapes, they said that they could hear him screaming in the car. I mean, it was very, very sad. And it was a tractor trailer that did this. So you think, okay, great. We know there's X amount of money. That's not always the case. So they made an offer to us, and tractor trailer companies don't always disclose all of the insurance up front, even though they're supposed to, because there might be insurance on the tractor. There might be insurance on the trailer. There are different umbrella policies, things like that. So I filed suit and through discovery was able to find all of the available coverage, and then we were able to get that money for that father's family. And again, it won't replace the life of someone, but someone else may have just taken the offer without filing suit and making sure they've gotten every possible insurance policy out there to cover that person's wrongful death. And so we took that extra step, went through some discovery, and we were able to maximize that recovery for them.
That is incredible. And what's interesting to me is I know the case that you're talking about. It's funny how I never really think once my reporting on the story might be done, what's happened. You know, I don't get to follow those journeys
Right.
Of what happened to that family after after their relative was killed.
Yeah.
But that grabbed headlines when it happened.
And there are people that come to us actually and send us the news articles from their accident, and they'll say, "Oh, you may have heard about our accident the other day. You know, it was the big backup on 85 or whatever it is," and they send us those news articles, and those news articles can sometimes be helpful in identifying other drivers and companies involved in things like that. So you're also helping us in a way.
All right, you can use my radio stories, folks. If you give me another example of some case that seems very obvious. You're
Sure.
As you said, a human life. You can't put a number on it, but you know that is a high value case because there is a lot lost there. Not
Right.
just time, but whatever that person may have been bringing into their household, that kind of thing. But not every case that you're going to get is going to involve a fatality.
Right, of course. One of our attorneys, Nick, had a case where it was a husband and a wife involved in a motor vehicle accident. The property damage was pretty bad. I think the husband had a surgery of some sort and another surgery was recommended. And the wife had a surgical recommendation, meaning one of her doctors recommended she undergo surgery, but she hadn't. And they offered $50,000 to settle their cases before filing a lawsuit. And most people would look at that and think, you went through surgery for $50,000 to be split? That doesn't seem very fair. You and I might think that seems like a high value case. So Nick filed suit and then had to go to mediation and then was able to get almost $1 million from it. So things that we may think are clear high value cases, that doesn't mean that the defense attorney or the insurance company are looking at it the same way. And again, you need to hire an attorney that's going to take the proper steps to maximize your recovery and get you an exceptional result.
You got a 7-figure judgment for that client who
Yes.
was on 85 as well.
Yeah, I did almost $1 million, if not $1 million.
Yeah, it's incredible. And so some things seem very very obvious. How is it that you know right away?
So it's hard to know right away if someone needs surgery down the line because it depends on what their treatment is like. But there are several things that go into your value of a case. One of the important things is insurance limits and how much we have in insurance limits. And the other thing is your injury. What does your injury look like? How is it affecting your life? What's your medical treatment like? But a lot of people come and say, oh, I want that $1 million case. But if you're getting $1 million, that means you're significantly injured. So more money doesn't always equal better for you physically. You want to be careful of that because if you could say to someone, you're going to get in an accident tomorrow and your legs are going to be amputated, what's that worth to you? I don't know that you could put a dollar value on that.
Right. All right. What about cases that are not the obvious?
Yes.
Okay. Does Montlick have a way to navigate those cases?
Of course. So that's where you really have to tap into your resources and support staff, and we need to use our resources wisely. I had a case, and the person was a driver of a delivery type truck van, and someone came by and knocked off his side view mirror.
Okay.
And so you would think, oh, that's not that bad.
Not a
It's
big
just your side view mirror. But he ended up having to have neck surgery. And if you think about it, the amount of force it would take to knock off a large side view mirror from like a big box delivery truck is a lot. And so we requested pre-suit mediation, which is not something people always do, but they were undervaluing the case. And we got there, and I was able to settle for hundreds of thousands of dollars.
What were they offering before? Ballpark?
Less than 100,000.
Wow.
So, I mean, yeah, you really need to look at a case and say, what can I do here to really maximize this, to get
and
an exceptional
sometimes
result?
It's going to take going that extra mile, the depositions where you sit down and do a Q&A with everybody involved and really get the facts laid out, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Ellen Forrester of our firm, I know she's been on the show several times.
We love her.
We love Ellen. She had a case with minors involved in a product liability case involving a recreational type vehicle. And they were in the back and they were significantly injured. The kids needed surgeries, had broken bones. And
so sad.
Yeah, she had to take 2 out-of-state trips for that case. She had to hire a mechanical engineer and a metallurgist, metal specialist.
A specialist in metals.
Yes,
wow, metallurgist.
yes.
Okay.
And they found it was improperly welded, the roll bar. And that one wasn't necessarily a win for us because they found some contraband in the vehicle as well that could have really damaged their case. And she was able to get over $1 million on that case
Incredible.
after hiring those experts and making the extra effort and going out of state when she needed to. So that was a really exceptional result.
Wow. So it doesn't look like that's not a thing where liability might be at play, but it's the kind of thing that could definitely be argued.
Yes.
And yet you were still able to get a 7-figure judgment for those clients and to help those kids get well and their families. All right, coming up on Lawyers in the House with Montlick, we're going to talk a little bit more about what exceptional lawyering looks like and how Montlick adds value to cases which may not come in the door looking quite so obviously big. That's straight ahead on Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. All right, welcome back to The House. Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. Your girl, Veronica Waters. Your girl, Montlick injury attorney, Jennifer Fleming. We're talking today about exceptional lawyering and what that looks like. Jen, what do you say when I say, what's an exceptional lawyer look like?
I say it's someone that's up to date on the laws, knows what they're doing, has the resources to help you out and the support staff. You really need to think about who you're hiring. The flashiest on, a social media account doesn't always equal the best for you. So you really need to trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. And going back to people that are up to date on the laws are constantly changing, and you need a lawyer that's in the know. A few years ago, the bad faith requirements changed, and it limited how you could write a demand and the requirements you could have. And if your lawyer's not up to date on that, you could be losing potential money there if an insurance company were in bad faith.
Bad faith can really turn a case from, okay to mega wow.
It can, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's really important.
We had a whole show, you guys, on bad faith. It was with Nathan and Bill. And essentially, the insurance companies helped write the laws that determine how cases should go, how they should handle cases. But if they break the laws and the rules that they helped write, they could be on the hook for something. And that can make a case really go, really skyrocket. The value really skyrocket.
That was an excellent description.
You guys
That's
have taught
amazing.
me so well.
You're learning.
Listen, I don't play a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on the radio. Okay.
Yeah. And the apportionment statute was changing too recently. And one of the attorneys at our law firm needed to file suit before that apportionment statute. That's how you apportion fault or liability.
Okay. Thank you for explaining that.
Yes. Sorry. And so he needed to file suit quickly before that law changed to maximize the recovery for our client, and he was able to do so. But if you don't have an attorney who's up on the law or knows what's happening, you can really jeopardize the value of your case.
All right, quick question for you. You've talked a lot about knowing what the laws are. Do you have to, and you can, if this is, too weird, you could tell me, but what about just trusting your own gut? Does that come into play when you're an attorney, or is it just all black and white, paper?
Trusting your gut does come into play. I mean, we have a knowledge of the law, so we can trust our gut with the knowledge of the law. But yeah, I mean, I say as a client, you should definitely trust your gut too. Make sure you feel right with your lawyer. If it looks cool on Instagram, but it doesn't feel like they might be the best lawyer for you, then you need to trust your gut on that.
I think that's well said. I do want to point out, though, I don't think that you're saying social media is bad. I'm always telling people to follow the show on @Montlick-Law, right? Follow the firm. But it's interesting that I think you were painting a picture about a certain type of attorney.
Right.
And you want somebody that you feel shares your values.
Correct.
And has that sort of, you can have fun on social media, but is this somebody that I really want handling my case, or do I just want to party with them?
Right. Are they professional? Are they compassionate? Do they have cordiality with other attorneys and judges staff? Do they maintain that professional air about them, or is it just gimmicky to draw you in? Those are things to look for and to pay attention to.
All right. Jennifer Fleming, Montlick injury attorney, here on Lawyers in the House with Montlick, talking to me, Veronica Waters, about exceptional lawyering. Coming up next, after the break, how to get high value in your case when somebody says you might be to blame. That's straight ahead on Lawyers in the House. Welcome back to Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters here with Montlick injury attorney Jennifer Fleming, talking about how exceptional lawyering with the folks at Montlick Injury Attorneys can land you high value for your case. It's exceptional lawyering, and the things that they have to know and do to do it are pretty incredible. So if you missed any of those nuggets, make sure that you subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform, and every new episode will drop into your ears right away. And you can always keep up with us all throughout the week at Montlick-Law on every platform social. Remember, you can also see us on the YouTube. Find us online. Jennifer looks so cute. She's single, you guys. I'm just saying. She's single and she's looking super cute up in here. Okay. All right. So we were talking we started off the show, Jen, talking about my love of superheroes. Yes. And during the break, you were saying, I don't believe that you really I think that's what you were trying. You didn't say it like that, but you were trying to say, Veronica.
I was just asking if that were true.
It is absolutely 100% true. And I am not only a DC girl. Now, this doesn't mean I did all the comic books. I don't do the comic books. I don't know anything about those. So I don't have these arguments like, well, that's not how they did it in
right,
blah, 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 whatever.
Her cape is the wrong color.
Right. I just love the stories. I love it when the good guy wins. And so I'm also a big fan of Marvel. So I watch everything that is out there streaming. And once again, I love all the individual movies. I love the TV show they did with the Scarlet Witch, all of the new things that they're coming out with. But I also love when those individual superheroes like Thor or Vision or Hawkeye, the Black Widow, when they all get together and they are the Avengers. I mean, that's a major thing. Iron Man and everybody else, Captain America, the Hulk, Thor. Come on now. That is some good stuff.
It is.
And so you can have what we were talking about earlier, you want somebody avenging you. You want somebody avenging you. If somebody's pointing the finger at you after you've been hurt through no fault of your own, and they're saying, no, it was your fault. Yeah. Oh, no, avenge me, honey.
Yeah. I mean, we've had cases where it's an uphill battle from the beginning, but you have to have a lawyer that's going to take those on. I had a client who lost the use of her arm. She was living with her fiance at the time, and he had 2 dogs there, and she had fed the dogs before. They stayed out back of the house, and she was on the phone with him, thank goodness, and went out back one day, and the 2 dogs started attacking her viciously.
What?
And her fiance heard it over the phone and rushed home. He had to eventually shoot both of the dogs to get them off of her. That's how maimed and how awful it was. She was completely mauled. Yeah. She was in the hospital for several months, and it was really sad. And the insurance company could have said to her, well, you knew these dogs were dangerous and you lived with them. Her fiance was actually training them to fight.
Oh, wow.
So she could have been deemed to have knowledge of that and voluntarily assumed the risk by living there. She didn't leave. And another law firm may have turned that down because of those facts, but we took it on and we fought it. And I got her the full policy limits of the homeowner's insurance, which was hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Wow.
And it was a sad story, but a difficult story also, because you do think, okay, well, she was living there, but also she's so severely injured. It was just...
Did you get that pushback? Did they say, well, she knew those dogs?
I did a little bit. But on the other hand, I'm saying this woman is just middle-aged and lost the complete use of her arm and now isn't living with her fiance, and you're just going to let her suffer. And they eventually did what was right.
Yeah, that had to be wonderful when you were able to sit down with her. Going back to the first part of the show when you were like, when you sit down with somebody and say, this is what you're going home with.
Yeah. I mean, there are people that you forever remember, and hers is one of them. And I had that case years ago, and I can picture her to this day. And I hold a special place in my heart for her and always wish the best for her.
I'm sure she has the same feeling about you. Let's talk some more about some of our other favorite lawyers. You talked earlier about Nick Vicino and Ellen Forrester, as well as yourself.
Yes. Kate Powell.
Kate, yeah.
She had a case where a woman was at a fast food chain, and she slipped and fell by the beverage station, where you get your soda and your ice. Mm-hmm. I guess there was some ice that had been melted, and that's a really hard area to keep clean. It's hard to put on a restaurant, especially if it's a heavy traffic flow restaurant, lunch rush, dinner rush. People are constantly in there getting their soda, getting their ice, and things are dropping on the floor. They can't really have an employee standing there with the mop and constantly mopping it. So that liability is a little difficult, too, because a jury might say, well, what did you expect the restaurant to do? Maybe they had just cleaned it up 2 minutes before. So she slipped and fell, injuring her leg, and she had some degenerative issues, meaning like over time aging issues with her leg before the accident.
Wow, okay.
And they went to mediation, and they ended up walking out because the offer was so low. And Kate was like, what are we going to do here? We need to get this case settled. The client had really high expectations. They were getting ready for a jury trial. They went to the judge and said, can you please do a pretrial settlement conference, which is not something that all judges would agree to or would do. And luckily, this judge agreed to it. And he sat them down in his chambers and had conversations and put the pressure on, saying, let's get this done before I have to call a jury in here. If you call a jury in, you can't be wasting their time in general. You need to make sure it's worth their time. And so he put the pressure on, and they were able to resolve it for a few $100,000, which is an excellent result for that case. And thank goodness the judge was willing to work with Kate and the defense attorney and their clients.
Yeah, it occurs to me, too, you were talking about that professionalism earlier, the cordiality, the reputation that you have. That judge knew that Kate and Montlake were serious.
Right.
And it's really interesting when you think about it that this sort of, he doesn't have a dog in the fight.
Right.
Right? He's just right down the middle.
Right.
And goes in there and says, you guys are being ridiculous.
That's right.
You guys are being ridiculous. Give them what they're asking for.
Right. Yeah. And a judge is great for that because as lawyers, we respect judges. I mean, they should be respected by clients and lawyers and everyone. And so they are unbiased, and they're a great person to come in there and really try to get a case settled.
It's fascinating to me that you can keep turning cases that may look like stinkers right? These liability cases. I think because, nobody's perfect. A lot of people are hurt through no fault of their own, and they could still be, but there is some window there where an insurance company will say, well, you're to blame. Give me another. I want to hear some more of this kind of stuff.
And just also, that's something that we're constantly thinking about as lawyers is, if we go in front of a jury, how will they view this? And that's good forethought to have from the beginning of a case. You should be constantly thinking about, if I have to try this case, what do I want to be in the evidence? What's going to be used against me, and how can I combat that? And that's a strategic lawyer that you need to have. I know we talked about Nick Vocino earlier, but he had a dog bite case with a 3-year-old child.
Another dog bite case.
I know.
Wow, these are big.
And I love dogs, so nothing wrong with the
same.
dogs, but sometimes they can be vicious. He went over to his grandmother's house, and the dog bit his face. And he had been at his grandmother's house several times. Now, he's a 3-year-old. You can't put a lot of liability on a 3-year-old.
Hello.
They said that he allegedly pulled the dog's tail. And he actually healed okay, which is great. His face was good. But Nick sent photos right after the attack to the insurance company, and he was able to get the full policy limits for, I think, about $300,000 on that because of sending the pictures from right after when the attack happened. Now, sometimes they ask you for updated photos, and had they asked for that, maybe they wouldn't have offered so much because they saw that they would have seen that he healed pretty well. But Nick was strategic in what he was sending.
Mm-hmm. There could be, though, these lingering aftermath issues that you're not thinking about, because as a child, if you get mauled by a dog, 3-year-olds, I think, are starting to form memories by that time.
Yeah. Of course, and that could be completely traumatizing, and you could be afraid of dogs for the rest
of your life.
I know.
Yeah.
And at your grandma's house, I'm sure that's scarring in and of itself. Going over to grandma's is now a traumatic event for you as a 3-year-old. Really sad.
Would you say that most of the cases that you see, or that all of, because I know you guys have been talking about these kinds of things, are most of the cases obvious ones, or do you see a lot of these where there's this disputed liability?
There are a lot with disputed liability, and you have to make sure you hire an attorney that's willing to take that on. I mean, of course, there are 2 arguments to almost every case. That's how lawyers are in business. The insurance company, they have to be able to argue their
side. They've got their lawyers too.
Exactly. They find a nugget in a medical record somewhere, and they hang their hat on that. And you also have to have the forethought to think about, what are the arguments going to be, and how can I overcome that, or what can I use to combat that to get the most for my client and what they deserve.
And whether or not that nugget is even justified, or if it's just blowing smoke.
Correct.
Because I can say that I might be intimidated by it. I'm not an attorney.
Right.
And if they said, well, Veronica, we saw you skinned your knee in 7th grade, and that could be why your leg is hurting today. I'm exaggerating people, but
It's actually not that big of an exaggeration. Things like that happen all the time. Oh. And I've said in front of a jury, hey, everything they're saying to you is smoke and mirrors. They're saying, look over here to the right. And I'm saying, no, let's look at the facts over here to the left. And yeah, you're not far off.
Wow. So do you have details about this thing? Michael Rubin, let's talk about Michael Rubin. Sure. He's been an amazing trial attorney. He is the one who really first brought home to me when I was saying, oh my gosh, multi-million-dollar verdicts, that's amazing. And you keep doing that year after year. And he said, Veronica, those is just like what you said. When you're getting those huge verdicts, those huge judgments and settlements,
yes,
that means somebody is hurt extremely badly or not living anymore.
Right. It's absolutely true.
I was sort of embarrassed. I said, oh my gosh, it's great that you could get that for a client, but I don't need to be celebrating really the fact that that the money was there.
Right.
It's good for the family, but my God, what has been lost?
It's so true. And people don't think about that when they see those types of advertisements. They don't think about what does that mean for that person or their family. And it's oftentimes very tragic and very sad. And of course, results vary depending on the facts of every single case. Every case is unique. People call me all the time and they're like, oh, I have XYZ injuries. What's my case worth? And I say every case is different, and they'll say, but my neighbor got X, Y, and Z.
Right, that's a common one, right?
And it's literally every single case is different. You and I we could be the twins and have different anatomies in our own body and what we had before and what our injuries are. So, yeah, it's tragic if you're getting a lot for that client.
All
usually.
right. Did you and Michael talk about any cases before before you came in here?
Yeah, we did. So he had a client that was making a delivery to a silo, actually, and there were men on top of the silo, and I guess they dropped a metal rod onto his client's head. And
What?
Yeah.
From a metal rod from a silo?
Right. I mean, you could be lucky to be alive after something like that. That's a big vertical drop. He ended up needing surgery, and that could have been bad because had he heard them up there, he may have assumed the risk by just standing underneath there, knowing people are up on top.
Wait a minute. How tall are silos, honey?
I mean,
Wait a
they're
minute.
pretty tall, but like if you know people are up there, you shouldn't be backing yourself up against one and standing there. So Michael was able to get him about $600,000. Thank goodness, again, he survived, but with a surgery. But that could have been a tricky situation. Like I said, again, if you know someone's on top of a silo, you hear them, you see them. I think he had seen them but didn't fully hear where they were, and he was still standing there.
He was working. Was he making some sort of delivery or
I
something?
believe so,
Okay,
yes.
yeah. Yeah, so that would explain why why he's there. So it's amazing, again. I know I use the word amazing a lot on this show, but it really is incredible. If you can look at a case, not turn it away, whereas somebody else might have or has already done it. And you can say, I know they're saying you're to blame. I know it looks like you might be at fault, but I'm going to take this on for you. And then you get them these 6- and 7-figure awards so they can move forward with their lives.
Yeah.
How amazing must that be? Coming up on Lawyers in the House with Mottlick, the Mottlick closing argument. Don't you miss it. You are in the house with Mottlick, Lawyers in the House with Mottlick here on WSB. Veronica Waters here with Mottlick injury attorney Jennifer Fleming, and you've been waiting for it all hour long. It is the Mottlick closing argument. Jen Fleming, take it away.
Okay, today we have exceptional lawyering, exceptional results. How can you help maximize the value of your case? Help us help you.
Yeah, you can't be exceptional if your client's not cooperative.
Correct. That's very true. That's very true. So we need your help too as a client. Things that you should do to help. Tell your doctor all of your complaints, all of them after an accident or an injury. If you leave out things like anxiety or you forgot to tell them your left leg hurt, it won't be in the evidence of your case. And we need all of that. Make sure you tell them everything that's bothering you. I have a lot of clients that'll focus on the one main part of their body that hurts and leave out 4 others. And we're in a deposition later on, 3 years later, and they said, I also hurt my arm and my hand, and they never brought it up. So make sure you're telling your doctors everything that's bothering you. Call the police from the scene. I've had a repetitive client where she's been in 2 accidents and not call the police from the scene. Always call the police from the scene. You never know what that other driver is going to say when there's no officer there. If you are in an accident and you don't call the police from the scene and you go home and then later call the police, they might contact the other driver and the other driver might say, whoa, I'm not at fault. You didn't see the vehicles. Your client's at fault. So call them from the scene so the officer can see the vehicles, see where their position, and determine whose fault it is.
And take some pictures.
And take pictures from the scene. Again, especially if you're not calling the police, but we're not doing that. But take pictures at the scene right after the accident where your vehicles are still in the same position so that cannot be used against you again later on if someone else changes their story.
Okay.
Very important to document that. We say it all the time, underinsured motorist.
Oh, yes.
Make sure you have it. Underinsured motorist coverage. You need it. You need it. You need it. We cannot say it enough. You have no idea how many times people are hit by someone that is not insured. Please get underinsured motorist coverage. Be aware of the fact that we are not always going to give you good news. It is my job to give you all of the news, good or bad. I need to be honest with you, and a good lawyer will be honest with you and upfront with you. With the pandemic, a lot of cases have been drawn out in getting to a jury and going to court. And you might think, okay, well, I've been waiting 4 years to go to trial. I'm going to get more money. The amount of time you wait to get to trial does not mean that you get more money.
Oh.
It's just that the judicial system is backed up. We get there as quickly as possible, but that can take several years. But something we should be aware of. And the last part is something we've said this whole time is you do not necessarily want a big result for your case because that means a truly bad injury has happened.
Yeah. You have got to get taken care of, but don't wish for injuries that are really horrific. Just wish, do your part to get well again. Thank you so much to Montlick injury attorney Jen Fleming for being in the house with us here on Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. Only the exceptional paths bring exceptional glories. And you probably know by now you need an exceptional lawyer to get you exceptional results when you've been hurt through no fault of your own. I'm Veronica Waters. We'll see you next time on Lawyers in the House.